Out of all the millions of people who love superheroes, you think one would give it a try?
The superhero genre is dominated by the big two, DC and Marvel. There are some heroes that are well known and some there are not. Kick-Ass is just that sort of a story, released under the Marvel banner, but it was not quite in the same vein or familiar guise as X-Men or the Avengers. But it was unique enough that a comic book fan and a director, Matthew Vaughn, was interested in adapting it into a movie. But does that mean the movie is any good? Let's find out. I'm Meffistoe. Like, share, and subscribe because this is my review of the movie Kick-Ass.
Oh, dude, that is one gay-looking taser.
Kick-Ass is a black comedy superhero movie directed by Matthew Vaughn and written by Jane Goldman. It is based on the Marvel comic book written by Mark Millar and illustrated by John Romita Jr. The rights to the film were sold before the first issue of Kick-Ass was even published, and as that book was developing, the movie script was developing as well. Although Goldman took a very different route with her telling of the story, and as Mark Millar stated, converting it into a chick flick and softening the harshness of the book version. To be fair, the same Mark Millar actually said that the movie adaptation did a much better job than his actual book.
If they did it in real life, they get their ass kicked. They'd be dead in like a day.
A day.
Yeah, okay, I'm not saying they should do it. I just can't figure out why nobody does.
The story follows Dave Lazinski, a regular high school kid. Him and his close friends are nothing special in school, they don't belong to any groups, and they don't even get bullied. They are just there. After Dave and his friend get mugged for no apparent reason, and nobody's saying anything, despite the opportunity to do so, Dave decides that someone should be a hero. Someone should step up. So he gets himself a suit that hides his face, and he goes out and tries to find crime and help people out.
You wanna know what's wrong with me? Yeah, I'd rather die. So bring it on!
This, of course, leads him to face his own muggers, which doesn't really go well. However, from this experience, his resolve is strengthened, and finally, it pays off.
Everybody's favorite superhero right now, Kick-Ass, right? Kick-Ass!
This viral moment brings him attention from bro criminals and from other friendly but far more experienced vigilantes.
Who are you?
Me? I'm Hit Girl. And that's Big Daddy.
As Dave discovers that he is in way over his head, but he cannot stop because a girl in school thinks that Kick-Ass is great.
You know what? I was seriously thinking of mailing his site. I mean, I could really use some help from a guy like that right now.
Help? Really? What with?
Matthew Vaughn got to start working alongside Guy Ritchie in creating Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. But since then, he went on his own path. Vaughn is a big fan of comic books, and throughout his career, he's been involved in quite a few comic book adaptations, like the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and the Kingsman. This, of course, filling several different positions between producer, director, or writer, but Kick-Ass was his first crack at a comic book adaptation. He had the rights for the movie, but he could not sell the project to any studio, so he raised money on his own from investors and later on sold the finished product to Lionsgate and then later on to Universal.
He's got a cape. Yeah, capes rock.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the cape. He looks good.
What, better than Kick-Ass?
I'll first address the casting. Aaron Johnson, or more widely known today as Aaron Taylor Johnson, plays the role of Kick-Ass, or Dave. He did a fine job in the role, and just like Dave, he is nothing special, but he adequately conveys Kick-Ass as the guy who is willing to stand up for what is right, despite not having the proper skills to back it up. Kick-Ass, the character, is more about the determination rather than real power or skill, and Johnson actually fits well within this role with his big shaggy hair, his glasses, and his weird looking face. Sorry Aaron, we all had that phase, including myself.
You know what? I'm thinking of just shutting my site down anyway. Quitting. And this is fucking insane.
Opposite to him, we've got a couple of people. First of all is Chloe Grace Moretz, who was 11 at the time of filming, but she was already an accomplished child actress. But in the role, she displays a much more mature version of this kid. Hit Girl has been trained and bred for being a superhero vigilante, but it wouldn't be believable if the acting was poor. It really wasn't. Every time Chloe speaks as Hit Girl, you believe that this is the kid who is excited about guns, knives, and training with them. And this whole acting bit even kind of bleeds into the movie, because one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Hit Girl acting her way into a secured building disguised as a helpless young schoolgirl.
I lost my mommy and daddy.
She lost her mommy and daddy. You want to use my cell phone?
And to round up the trio of heroes is Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy. This is where the rubber meets the road, because Cage himself is also a massive comic book fan. He took upon himself to develop this role and make it his own, alongside paying homage to the past actors who have played a similar role. Big Daddy in Millar's book is an accountant that was just fed up with how things are, much like Kick-Ass himself. But in this movie, he is a disgraced ex-cop out for vengeance, and his costume reflects the spirit of vengeance. Well, I won't beat around the bush, he plays a knockoff Batman. But Cage decided he won't go the Christian Bale route, which would have been way too obvious back in the day, but instead he did his best Adam West impression. As Damon McCready, he is calm, nice, and nurturing, almost to the point of following the lead of Hit Girl. And as my friend Tom stated, he is kind of a Mr. Rogers type dude. But as Big Daddy, he is firm, strict, and menacing, and he knows what he wants and how to get there. And Cage, of course, just plays his ass off and even gets a chance to pull off one amazing Cageism scene. And it came out of nowhere, like most of the time. Just to let you know that it is still Nicolas Cage underneath that suit.
I rerouted your IP address. Finding you was way too easy.
On the whole, Kick-Ass is a quite unassuming superhero movie. It has the same kind of comedy that Deadpool has, just without the fourth wall breaking and without the Ryan Reynolds shtick. In various moments, it flips the comic book narrative on its head, or at least the tropes of it. But it is still as brutal as Deadpool and almost as rough and raunchy as Deadpool as well. And because it wasn't as raunchy as Deadpool, my desensitive ass thought it was a PG-13 for some reason, but we'll put my stupidity aside. The movie has some great action scenes combining martial arts and gunplay. It has a ton of subtle comedic moments from everyone in the cast, including the villains. And despite its 2-hour run, time goes by really fast, mostly because of how the story is told. It just moves from one scene to the next, not letting you rest until the story is complete. And all this while keeping within the confines of the comic book story that always needs some suspense of disbelief.
You're my hero. You inspired me. No kick-ass, no red mist. Seriously.
But before we wrap things up, I just wanted to say that in hindsight, it's really funny that Aaron Taylor Johnson plays alongside Evan Peters in this movie. Both were a part of that trio of friends that Kick-Ass has. And the funny part is both Johnson and Peters played Quicksilver in the Marvel Universe. Johnson on Avengers Age of Ultron, and Peters in the Fox universe of Marvel, first appearing in X-Men Days of Future Past, a movie that was co-written by one Matthew Vaughn.
He would have spoken to me like that, I would have kicked his ass.
Todd, when have you ever kicked anyone's ass?
Whatever, man. I would have just gone for his knees.
So with that little tidbit of information, I will highly recommend you pick up this movie to watch, especially if you are a new MCU fan. It will give you some perspective on the last decade and a half since this movie came out, smack down in the middle of Phase 1 MCU. But because it's a Z-list character, it went a whole different direction.
How do I get a hold of you?
You just contact the mayor's office. He has a special signal that shines in the sky. It's in the shape of a giant.
I thank you for watching, and remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I'll see you on the next video.